we work with like
versus Jesus, startup Jesus. So connecting strategy in different work environments.
because I mean because we don't have like a specific within the agency. We don't have like a specific user that we're working for. We are targeting. We're working with a bunch of different types of users through our different clients.
Mm-hmm.
What's the challenges and
Well, with startups specifically, one of the challenges is that they don't have users, and so a lot of what they're doing, what they're coming to us with, is theory of how they think that their product is going to work, and so that takes a little bit of a different type of understanding than, say, working on something existing and improving it. You kind of have to think of it in, it's almost like, it's a little bit of an educate guess.
Yeah.
You know, because we're taking their requirements, combining it with our experience and saying, hey, we think this is going to work. You know, but at the same time, I mean, being an agency, we take on projects that, you know, we think are going to be successful, but at the same time, we're also building somebody else's vision, you know, so it's a little different than building something that's your own. So
have you worked on like any companies who are building on one specific product?
Like, what do you mean, like a startup?
Yeah, like a startup or like a tech company, or
that's doing what specifically?
Or building a product.
Well, I mean, any of the startups that we work with, they're all building a product that, you know, they think is going to be successful.
Yeah.
So, you know, any number of use cases there. So from, you know, social media to education. I mean, we've got all kinds of stuff. You know, there's a couple challenges there. One is often you're designing more for a customer or client because they, as a business owner, as a startup, they think that they're the expert.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something we should necessarily publish, but you know, you're kind of stuck with kind of in a way doing what they want versus, you know, you give them what you think is going to be successful, and oftentimes they're going to be like, no, I want it this way.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, like your hands are tied in a way. I mean, that's just one of the downsides.
That's the nature of it.
Being an agency, you know. But with an existing product or something that, you know, an established business, something that you're improving, if they want to invest the time to do interviews, research, usability studies on their existing product, you have a lot more data to point to say this is why we did this, or this is why we made this decision, or we're presenting, you know, this direction. If they still don't want to listen to you, then okay, it's fine. But this is what the data says. You know? So when we're working with a startup or a new business who doesn't have that to point to, you're more or less going off of like expertise, opinion, and
like preliminary research, basically.
Yeah, best practices. You know, and so oftentimes the most logical case doesn't always win, depending on who you're working with. You know, and so you know, they're minor arguments, but we try to present things in a way that, you know, this is what we think is the best path forward, and most often people will agree with us.
Yeah. Have you ever conducted any form of experiments on a product or UX strategy, whether it's trying to get market validation?
I'm reading it.
So. Yeah.
So conducted experiments on a product or UX strategy? Yes. Testing prototypes on target consumers? Yes. So there's a couple different things there.
Okay.
So do you want me to like talk about what we did, or are these multiple?
Here, let's try to break up this,
Yeah.
change up this question.
Um,
So have you ever connected any form of experiments on a product strategy or UX strategy, whether it's
trying to get market validation or testing prototypes?
so basically what I'm asking, I'm trying to get at is like, have you conducted any form of experiment on product or UX strategy, and how did you get closer to the truth while you're conducting it? Does that question make sense, or is it?
Kind of.
We can go back. Let's just go back.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're is like kind of how do we conduct the test and
Mhm.
make sure that we're getting the right type of answers. So there's two different types of tests I could speak to there. So one is like that when you have a strategy, or you say you have a direction for a product that you're trying to test out and validate, and you think that, okay, based on all of our research, we think that this is going to be a reasonable or valid product that people are going to use for all of these reasons.
Yeah.
And so you come up with a few ideas, we present those, get them from a client committee, whatever it might be. They sign off on one of our directions and they say, okay, well, prove to us that this is going to work. So what we've done in the past is put together focus groups or talk to users, and we qualify them based on certain criteria. And so we just go to Craigslist and recruit users. We have them go through a little survey. They fill out a number of different questions. We mix in some right answers and some wrong answers, and if they select all the right answers, then that basically vets them.
Yeah.
Go process, and then we reach out. So once they're vetted, we bring them in. And when we're testing things on like product strategy, we have a little bit of a script set up, but we have to do a little bit of ad lib in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to feel them out and ask questions based on their responses to kind of get the info out of them that you want. Mm-hmm. So when we're asking about like a travel application, how do you travel, or where did you go, or what are some of the types of trips that you take, was one of the things that we looked at recently. People kind of go off on their own tangent. Like there isn't a right or wrong answer in there, and so you're just trying to learn more about behavior, and then get them to the point where, okay, well, if you had a product like this, is that something that you would use, and for what reasons? Yes or no? Why? So everyone kind of takes their own path, but we always bring it back to that question. So there is some underlying thing that we want to know, but before we know that, in order to gauge their response accurately, we want to learn a little bit more about their background and kind of like, does this seem like they would be our core user? Yes or no? So if it sounds like they're a core user and all the things are aligning, then we get them down into that core question of like, is this something you would use? Maybe get something in front of them, little prototype, have them interact with it. Then we can kind of gauge like, okay, well, they're definitely our use case. This is the person that we outlined. This is the persona we outlined. Definitely our demographic. They're interested, and we kind of repeat that over and over. So that's kind of testing your strategy or testing your direction. The other side of that would be, I guess it's the next step that you could take after that. So, okay, we validated that use case. We got a little prototype in front of them. We got some feedback. We tweaked a few things. Now we actually built more of a working prototype, and we could do like a task-based test. Mm-hmm. And so that could be, complete tasks 1 through 3. with these directions and see how that goes. We can record that on screen. We can, if we're doing it in person, we can interact with them, coerce a little feedback out of them, and then iterate on that and see how we improve it. Kind of what we talked about with user testing. Just kind of going back to those, two basic principles of like you're testing something that doesn't exist, or you're testing something that exists.
Awesome. So what is a business case or an anecdotal story that you can walk us through the steps you have gone through in conducting strategy?
Well, I guess kind of what I just talked about. I guess I can go into a little more detail if you want.
Or just, I think more specifically, if you could talk, if you're able to like talk about a specific client or product that you've worked on.
So with one client, we're working with Connections Loyalty.
Would they be all right with me publishing their name? And
we're still building the product, and they're kind of, I don't know.
Okay, that's what I wanted in that question, is to be able, if possible, if just talk about a specific individual.
That's really the most in-depth or most valid one that comes to mind. And especially in terms of testing a strategy, because we were pretty exhaustive in that approach.
Yeah. Would you be able to talk about it and just refer to them?
Yeah, like a travel app.
Yeah.
So we're building this travel app, and this customer already had a platform. They had a web-based platform, and they wanted to provide a new type of product in the travel space. And so they didn't really know what it was going to be, but they wanted to complement their core offerings. And so they had a ton of data on all their users. They had a bunch of integrations that they were already working with, existing relationships with other vendors. They had commerce built into their platform, and they were selling other products as well as their own. So they had all these different things that they were working with, and they knew they wanted to bring it into some type of mobile app to add value to their core users, and their core users were travelers. And so we're using their platform specifically to book travel, but they didn't know what to do. So we took a step back, looked at all the data that they had, who was traveling, when, where, how often they were interacting with their platform, what were some of the most popular things that were being booked and the least popular things that were being booked, what are the margins on all those things, and why some of those things were more popular over others. So we're kind of getting into some of those use cases. So things that were most popular were obvious things like flights and hotels, because those are the things that people would think of to book on their platform. They weren't thinking about some of the other offerings that they had specifically around after they booked those flights and hotels. Once they're actually at their destination, they've completely forgotten about that platform and they moved on to something else. So we wanted to find a way to carry their offering through all the way through to the trip, to the vacation.
It's like managing everything that needs to be done in preparation.
We're not necessarily managing, but just still offering, something for them to do once they have their trip. So thinking about, okay, so you booked a flight, you booked a hotel. What are you going to do when you get there? So most people were going off into other sites and finding things elsewhere. So what we looked at was, okay, you have integrations with these activity and tour providers, but nobody's booking that, and you get a huge markup and a huge margin on these. So how can we surface that back as something people would think about when they're actually on a trip? So that had a really good use case for mobile, because it was something that you could do more or less on the fly. So we presented a number of different options around that. Ultimately, one of them stuck. So then we took that through a little bit more of a detailed research phase and some target personas and target users around that. And then we actually brought those users in for an in-depth research, interview, and discussion around what are your travel habits, And how would you use something like this was kind of our ultimate question. And then what's your feedback on it? So we get to a little prototype that we built, and we had them interact with it to see, if there was something they would be interested in, and how and why, and how would they use it. So ultimately, those informed a lot of our product decisions moving forward. Provide a little bit of validation for what we had proposed and whether or not people would find it interesting. And it gave us the use case and the ammunition to move it forward and to get that final go ahead to say, yeah, we think this is a valid product and you guys should build it. So that holistic approach of finding where our opportunity is and then bringing it all the way to an actual user or end user or prospective end user, and saying, hey, would you use the solution that we came up with, and finding that it resonates, that's kind of validating that whole strategy and approach. So then once we validate that, we figure out, okay, this is going to fit into their life cycle and fit into things that they're already doing, and it would complement and enhance their day-to-day, especially when they're traveling. And then we can go in with the holistic, the UX approach, and then focus more on just all right, what are we doing within the app? So it fits into their life. So let's figure out how to optimize how it fits into their life on screen.
Nice. And then the last question is, what are important skills or mindsets you need to have in a job like yours?
Empathy, I think, is key. And so that's empathy for your users, for those who are going to be interacting with us on a day-to-day basis or whatever it is that you're building. Empathy and understanding for your clients as well, so getting into their mindset. A lot of it is just being able to take a step back and think of things from a different perspective. Think of things how someone else might be viewing it or approaching it. How are they thinking or feeling when they are interacting with this thing that you've been tasked to build? So that kind of gets back into thinking of the different personas and identifying those use cases, but it's being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and think about that, and think about how it's going to impact them. And I think for me personally, that goes from everything from clients to end users to even the folks on our team who are going to be working on something. So I think that it kind of all has an impact. We need all of those things to work together. The product team needs to be in a good mindset. The client needs to be happy, and then ultimately we need to make something that end user is going to be happy using.
Yeah.
Right. So all of those things kind of have to come together. We're not just working for one over the other. Everybody's kind of has to be in harmony, particularly in an agency too. I think you get a lot more players involved than just I'm a designer and I'm building something for somebody. There's a lot more going on with that. You have a product owner, you have, we often have bosses and managers and, on and on. So there's all kinds of players involved. And so having an understanding of either what the user's looking for, or also on top of that, what your client's looking for, and trying to mix those two together, because sometimes they don't always match up what you think the user wants versus what the client wants. And you're building a product. While you're building a product for an end user, you're also building a product for a client and the person who's ultimately hired you to do it. And so at the end of the day, if they really want to do something, then we're probably going to do it, even if we tell them not to, or recommend not doing it. I mean, it's their product, So you have to have that understanding of I guess it's an empathy, but it's also a willingness to kind of take a step back and be all right, I am working on this, but this doesn't define me. It's it's a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that gives me a lot to work with.
Cool. Yeah, hope that was helpful. I don't know, a little long-winded.
No, yeah, that's kind of long-winded, but oh well.
Hey, we had an hour.
What?
We had an hour.
We did have an hour. I just need to transcribe it all now.
I know. Sorry, it's never fun listening to yourself recorded.
I actually might just send it off and have someone else transcribe it.
That's cool.
I think it might be like, I think it's, I could probably edit this down.